Welcome back to what I did in lab today. Today was an entomology lab, which will hopefully give a little bit of context to the video I posted just below this. So today was our flight mill lab. We were using these black flies, which I'm sure pretty much everybody is at least a little bit familiar with. They're chunky. Look at how thick they are. Oh my god. Yeah, in that clip you could hear my lab partner and I cackling about how chunky these flies are. And they were big. They were like a good-sized fly. But you can see on that label up there where it says sugar and yeast and milk, that is the type of nutrients they were fed on. At least the ones in this bin. There were 4 bins with a different combination of those 3 nutrients. The one that my group actually used in the lab was more, I think it was the sugar in the milk? No, it was yeast in milk. That's the one that we used for our specific one. So to start off, we had this incredibly high-tech setup, which was essentially a bin full of flies with a hole cut out of it with a sock attached to it. So we could get into the bin without the flies getting out of the bin. Then we needed a way to get the fly out, so we had this tube, which attached to something which basically just sucked all of the air up into the tube. It basically just pulled a vacuum inside of it. So what we did, we stuck the tube up the sock, and we kind of wiggled it around until we got a fly. Then we had to turn the vacuum off so we could get the fly out. We removed the fly and put it into this vial in an ice bath. Now, this technique required a little bit of fine-tuning, so there were quite a few escaped flies throughout the whole lab, and funnily enough, my professor, who was showing us the proper technique in order to remove the flies from the bin and put them in the tube, the first one he did, he accidentally released, and it just buzzed its merry way off around the lab, and we all lost it because it was very funny. But we finally got our fly into this tube, and what the ice does is it essentially lowers the fly's temperature, which lowers the fly's metabolism to make it way calmer and allow us to actually do stuff with it. We once again have our incredibly high-tech setup. We have our little spinny device, which is a metal wire that spins attached to a cork, which is super glued to the bottom of a petri dish. Super duper high tech. We also have our chilling fly there. He's just hanging out in there, cooling off. And then we have our Bunsen burner, and we have our little pokey thing. Then what we did was an exercise of teamwork and trust. So there was 3 of us in a group. There was one lab partner. She took out the fly, and she was holding the fly with her fingers, like, on the legs. She was holding the fly. Then there was my job, which was to hold a little wax paper, paper with wax on the end. And then there was our third lab partner, whose job it was to hold the red-hot metal poker. Now, one lab partner holding the fly, me holding the paper with wax on it directly on top of the thorax of the fly, and our third lab partner holding the red-hot poker close enough to the paper to melt the wax, without preferably burning our fingers. Now, this did take a little bit of trial and error. Fortunately, nobody got burned, and eventually we got the paper stuck to a fly, which the result, again, a little bit of a learning curve. My one lab partner accidentally dropped the fly, so he was just waddling around the lab bench with this white triangle melted to his back, which looked very funny, but eventually we got the fly stuck to the wax and stuck that onto the metal wire spinny thing. So the purpose of this lab was to determine whether or not the food source of the larva and then therefore later the adult flies affected the duration of flight. So what we did, we took a fly that was fed on different food source and just see how long he flew. That's basically what we did, which resulted in these videos. Oh my god, good job, little buddy. Oh my god. Look at him go. So yeah, we just stuck him to the thing and off he went. That was the full real time. Ours wasn't going super fast at that point, but there were some that were just ripping around. Like, they were going so fast. We also have this slow motion video, which you can actually see that there's a fly attached to this as opposed to the other ones where it's just a spinning rod. So you can see him, you can see his flapping, his little wings just going. He's doing a great job. So essentially what we did is we just attached the fly, let him go, and set a timer. Now we did cap the flight for 60 minutes or 1 hour because we did have another lab section coming in we had to clean up, but he went for the whole time. He flew in this circle for 60 minutes straight, or not fully straight. So at some point the flies do get a bit tired and they decide, you know what, fuck this, I don't want to fly anymore. I am resigning from my title of fly. And so they basically just stop and just hang in the air. They're like, no, I'm done. But, so the flight mechanism of insects, like how they trigger flight, is very interesting. At least with flies like this, they're just on the ground, and when they decide they want to fly, they do this little jump that essentially just triggers the flight muscles to be like, oh, we need to fly. Great, let's do that. So we essentially gaslit this fly. If he stopped flying, we essentially just gaslit him into thinking, oh, I actually need to be flying again. Hold on. Restart. There we go. So by putting that microscope slide under his legs and then rapidly taking away, it's tricking his little fly brain into thinking that that was an intentional jump. So he's thinking, oh, my solid surface that I'm standing on has fallen away. That must mean I am jumping. That must mean I should be flying. And so he does. He keeps going. So yeah, we just ran the flight mill for about an hour, and then when we're done, we took off his wax and we released him outside to live out the last 3 or so days of his life, however he so chooses. Oh yeah, this did not hurt him in any way, it just tired him out a bit, but he ate quite a lot before we started using him in the lab, so he's fine. But it was a very fun lab. We all had a blast watching our little guys just go, and it was just very fun. I quite enjoyed it. Yeah. Fly Carousel, 10 out of 10 would recommend.